Okay, I think we're recording. I'm not sure. I'm not getting the response I usually get for the sound. There's the sound. It seems like it's okay. Hey, welcome to the podcast. It's the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm Greg Heitmann, and the kid in the Colonel and the Kid podcast. And I should try to remember to say that every time. I didn't introduce myself. I know on one of the podcasts, this is episode number 5, and I wanted to bring up the fact that again, this is a podcast based on the memoir I wrote about my grandfather. It's a memoir it's like my memoir, but it's a memoir that involves my grandfather trying to kind of document some of the history that he had, and mostly the history between him and I, as far as me being the grandson and him being the grandfather, Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr. And that's um, my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, and this is the spine of my whole podcast going on right now, and we're on chapter 5 of the memoir. We'll be reading that later on today, and just to get you up to speed, it's Friday, October 3rd, and well, yeah, I guess maybe you notice I'm wearing a hat today. I'm not wearing the coonskin cap, but this is the cavalry hat that I talked about last time, and we'll just jump into that. And I'm curious to see how it's going to work out for the sound of this. I'm not wearing the headphones today at all. I'm just going microphone, no headphones. Seems like it's okay. I ran a little test before. It seemed like the sound was fine. So anyway, but I'm wearing the hat, so I'm going to hold up the book that I failed to do last time. As far as wearing the hat, I held up the book, and I'm happy to say that it seems like I figured out that when I'm looking at myself doing the podcast, things are backwards in the way I see them, but when it's actually produced and you see it on your video producer, the YouTube video. I guess that's pretty much. I think it's the only video that's getting out there. If you want to look at the video, if you can, but you can just listen. But anyway, I'm holding up the book for those that are just listening, and it's backwards to me when I look at it as this podcast is being recorded, but apparently it's all magically fixed when you see it in the video. So don't worry about it being backwards or me talking about stuff being backwards. It's pretty funny to me when I discovered that. So that was good news though, because I didn't have to work to try to find any more settings or change anything, and I was just able to go ahead and not worry about that anymore. It just looks backwards to me, not backwards to anybody else. Pretty cool. So anyway, there's the back of the book too. And there's a very young picture of me. Look at that. I got like no gray hair or anything. It's weird. I think that was probably taken in 2010, 2009 time frame. So 15 or 16 years ago. Time takes its toll. Anyway, here's the book, Fort Siston, Dakota Territory. This was my first book that I wrote. And later on in the podcast, one of the chapters talks about Fort Siston and my grandpa's role in doing that, and we'll save that for later. But I'm wearing the hat today. This is my cavalry hat, Stetson hat. I really like it. I don't wear this kind of hat that much, but special occasion today to wear it out for the podcast in the first podcast of October. So anyway, today's chapter is chapter 5. It's called The Horse Comb, and totally unique chapter. It's pretty short, so we'll get to that coming up. But I did want to talk about some milestones in the podcast I've reached so far. I meant to do this last time. Actually, it's probably would have been better for the 4th podcast, even the 3rd podcast when I was recording it. But I don't really want to talk about it when I'm recording, because something goes wrong and then it could have been a failure. But anyway, this is the 5th podcast, and I was doing some research, and I think maybe I mentioned this before a little bit, and I know I've talked to people about this, that there are, according to some of the stats that I heard, and I did some research before I started the podcast, is that there's about 4.5 million podcasts out there. So there's a lot of podcasts, but according to the statistics that I don't know who keeps these statistics. I think maybe it's some of the production companies that that you actually do your podcast on. And just FYI, I'm using Riverside Studio, Riverside.fm Studio, I think it's called. And I pay a subscription fee to do that, and does a lot of the editing and sound correction, a lot of other stuff. So I'm not sure what other studios are out there. I know that I've listened to some podcasts that are done on Rumble Studio. That's the only other one I really know of. And I think there's other ones that are professionally done. So I don't know. They just use their own studio, professional studio. But anyway, I use Riverside, and I think Riverside does a lot of these stat keeping things too. And so they came up with the idea there's 4.5 million podcasts out there, but only 10% of those podcasts have more than 3 episodes. So I've surpassed that. It's just unbelievable. And the next milestone is the 21st episode, because if you get past 20 and get onto your 21st episode, that means you've reached the 1% of podcasts that have that many episodes. So that's what I'm striving for. I should easily do that, because my plan is, to go through the whole memoir that I have. And I know I have 52 chapters right now, but I just, I know I have another chapter to write. I just thought of it, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit. I won't talk about the subject or the title of that, another chapter that's going to come up. That'll be the 53rd chapter at least. And maybe there's going to be a goal. I think maybe I mentioned that before, that I wanted to have 3 volumes of 20 chapters each when I actually produce the book on Kindle. So the first volume is actually published on Kindle, and you can go purchase that. And then you can see all the photos and stuff right now that are a part of it, just electronic document at this time. And someday there might be an actual a hard copy book, with full color hard copy book, that I'll produce and sell. So anyway, that's something to look forward to. But anyway, 5th chapter coming up today. And it's a short one, so you can you don't have to suffer too much through my reading aloud skills that are hopefully going to get more polished as we go along. So fun stuff. And one of the segments, I mean, if you've been tuning in, one of the segments that I've decided is going to be a recurring segment for me is what I call abusive language, or verbal abuse. And that's just the funny things, the quirks of the English language, and just speech patterns and things, the weird observations that I make, that I hear. And I had some other stuff lined up, and then I kind of heard something last weekend during the football games. I think it was a Sunday night, on Sunday night, or football night in America, I think they call it. There was a guy that was doing some of the highlights, and they had the Jaguars versus the 49ers highlights, and he pronounced it Jaguars. And I was like, well, that is just really, really weird in my ear, the way I'm hearing him say it. Jaguars, Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's like, well, that's not how it's pronounced. It's not Jaguars, like a electrical wire or something like that. It's, so I was doubting myself. So I looked it up, and according to Google, it's Jaguars. It's like a J J J A and then the GWAAR. That's how they describe it visually, as far as Jaguars. So it's the blending in of the guar sound, the Jaguars. And somebody's I heard it someplace else too. Someone said Jaguars, and it's like, man, that sounds weird to me. So stop that verbal abuse. It's just abusive language to me. It hurts my ears when I hear Jaguars. It's Jaguars. So anyway, um, that aside, I wanted to expand on last week's verbal abuse section, when I talked about the catching whiskey in a bottle saying that really strikes me as funny. And that of course came from a coworker of my brother, when my younger brother Garrett was in the Air Force, and he was telling me about that. It was like 20 years ago at least. It has to be 20 years ago. Maybe it's not quite 20, but he had a coworker that talked about catching whiskey in a bottle, and then I was just racking my brain, because he had another saying that I could not think of, that his coworker had told him. Um, I'm not saying it was a description, and I finally remembered it, and he had talked about, a Serbian husky. And sorry, it's instead of a Siberian husky, he was talking about a Serbian husky, and that just I'm not sure what the context was of the conversation. I just remember they're talking about this guy with, um, I guess maybe not the sharpest tool in the tool shed, with the way he mixed up his his metaphors or sayings or idioms, whatever you want to say, just general words. Um, and it's just like I don't know, maybe there's something going on in that part of the world that was in the news, and then maybe it was in his brain that he was saying Serbian husky instead of Siberian, because there's been some issues over there with, I think way back when in the 90s, when under President Clinton, I think there was a war between Bosnia and Herzegovina. I don't know if that was between them. I don't know, there's some wars going on, and I was looking at some maps earlier trying to figure out, just if Serbia is actually a country. I guess it is still a country, but then I saw that there was the Czechoslovakia, which was one country when I was in high school. Now it's two countries, and it's Czechia and then Slovakia. And I thought that was, things change over time, I guess. But anyway, it's just funny to me how that I remembered that. I was just racking my brain to remember the Serbian husky situation of what the heck that was, and I could not think of what. And then finally hit me. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. So I have it written here on my calendar so that it was saved, and I could share that in the podcast for the verbal abuse section of this podcast. Anyway, I'll wrap that up, and we get right into the NFL projections. We did the review of the previous week's outcome, week 4, and downhill. I'm really heading in the wrong direction for the stat line, but I got to hang in there. You keep plugging along. Maybe things balance out. You come to a equilibrium where you belong as far as your picking goes. And I was up, just under 80%, and I've fallen down to an even 70%. Because last night's Thursday night game, it was 49ers at the Rams, and I picked the Rams, and that's just the way it is. The NFL has a parity of teams. There's just no telling who's going to win. It seems like 49ers are beat up, lots of injuries, a backup quarterback going, yet they were able to persevere. Just, I don't know, pretty good for them. I'm happy for them. I don't know. It's not my my division. It's my conference, the NFC. That's where my Vikings play, the NFC. But I was just surprised, and I lost that game because I had picked the Rams. I'm off to a rough start for week 5. But yeah, we'll go through the rest of the games, and there's the early game on Sunday. I do not like this. The Vikings are playing in London against the Browns. Vikings versus Browns, but it's technically a Browns home game, so it's the Vikings at Browns, and I'm picking the Vikings just because that's where my heart is. I think that they have a chance. I think that chance was made better because Joe Flacco has been put on the bench for Cleveland, and he's being replaced by Dylan Gabriel, a rookie quarterback. So, good luck, Cleveland. I think they have the number 1 defense in the league, but I think that the Vikings defense is right up there, and going against a rookie quarterback, it could be a long game for that kid. So, picking the Vikings. And I'll go through the rest pretty quickly because there's some other stuff I want to go get to and get the Colonel and Kid chapter on the record. And so let's go to the third game of the week, which I have Raiders at Colts. So that's an interesting game. This whole week it's been a struggle for me to think about these games. I make my picks early. A lot of times Sunday night, I'll go through after the game. The games have just happened. They're fresh in my mind, and the Sunday night game is on TV. I'll look at my my iPad and go through what the picks are for my Yahoo Fantasy League. Again, this is no money involved, just pride. I'm just in a little pick'em group for Yahoo, and look at the games, and I do it fresh on Sunday. And man, this was a tough week. Again, I'm just like, I had a bad week on week 4. Here we are, week number 5, and I'm like second guessing and just have just real no confidence going in, and even less confidence as I look at these games. So I don't know. Whatever you do, don't don't take it bet any money on my picks if you're thinking of doing that. So um Raiders at Colts, and I'm picking the Colts, but I can just see Raiders finally getting things together and winning this game, and maybe Geno Smith, a quarterback for the Raiders, going out of his head and just finally, you know, playing decent, winning a game. It's like, man, that's I, I don't know, picking the Colts, but zero confidence in this game. And right into the next game after this, Giants at Saints, same thing. I mean, the Giants won a game against the Chargers last week, and it was a big surprise. They have a new starting quarterback, and then the Giants have a new starting quarterback at the same time during that game as the new quarterback was starting. They lost their star wide receiver Malik Neighbors to a torn ACL, just on a routine play, just jumping up trying to get a ball. It's just kind of sad to watch that. But so the Giants are playing at Saints. Saints went to Buffalo and put up a good fight in Buffalo last week. So I'm sitting here picking the Giants, and the Saints are at home against a bad team. The Saints are not a good team. So picking the Giants, but zero confidence. I would not be surprised if I start the week 0-4 or 1-4. Maybe the Vikings might pull it out, but again, no confidence in that. Just strictly betting with my heart, picking with my heart on that. I'm not betting any money again, to be clear. Cowboys at Jets. Again, the Cowboys are entertaining in the fact that they can score a lot of points, that's the best part of football to me, is just getting up and down on the field, the offense, dominating the defense trying hard, but putting the points on the board. Excuse me. Jets coming off playing on Monday night, playing the Dolphins in Miami and losing, and they turned the ball over and over again and just looked bad doing that against a Miami team that was, still just no identity. And now they lost Tyreek Hill at their star wide receiver. So I'm picking the Cowboys to run up the score on the Jets in New York at the Jets. So we'll see what happens. Broncos at Eagles. This is going to be a good gauge of where these teams sit, because Broncos, I think they're 2-2, and Eagles are undefeated 4-0. I don't think the Eagles have really pulled out their stops yet in offense. They've been playing pretty tough defense, haven't really engaged on the offensive side very much, running the ball a lot. AJ Brown, their star wide receiver, complaining about not getting the ball enough, barely getting targets even during the game, not even thrown at him. But they're still winning. He's complained, not throwing a fit or anything, but just obviously saying that he's not getting the ball enough. And I think he's right, because I think you got to have that diversity in your offense. Just you can't be running the ball all the time, because you're just going to get clamped down on eventually. And so you got to be ready to spread it out a little bit. So anyway, I'm advising them, and they're 4-0. So you can take my advice for whatever it's worth, which is 0 grain of salt on that as far as that goes. I'm gonna pick the Eagles at home. I think Denver's got a pretty tough team. Got a young second-year quarterback, Bo Nix, doing a pretty good job of leading the team. But I think they're young all around in a lot of their positions, and they're gonna take some time to, I guess, probably grow into what they're going to become. So Dolphins at Panthers, this bottom of the barrel teams, the lower echelon, probably the lower I mean, the bottom 10 teams as far as talent goes in the league, I would say. I think the Dolphins are favored. I'm picking the Panthers at home. I think Panthers got embarrassed last week. I think they're going to try some different stuff, get out there, and Dolphins coming off a big Monday night win and emotional win after losing Tyreek Hill. So I'm just picking Panthers on that one. Texans at Ravens. This is a toss up. I just have no confidence in the Ravens. I'm picking the Ravens just because, how far can they go down? I mean, they are they are just looking terrible. And their starting quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who has been pretty much a superstar. I think he's, two MVPs in the last 4 years. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but he's been MVP. Probably could have been MVP last year. I think his stats were actually better than Josh Allen in Buffalo, but I think there was some fatigue for voting for him for MVP, and Josh Allen had a really good year last year. So Ravens are, I don't know, this is probably the make or break game for them. And Lamar Jackson out with a bad hamstring could be the end of their season right here. They might just this could be it. Be out of the playoff picture for the rest of the year. I'd go as far to say that if it goes bad and gets even worse downhill from here, that John Harbaugh at coach might be the end of the line for him too. Just might need some a new voice in that locker room. So we'll see. Titans at Cardinals. Again, the Titans are just they're the punching bag right now with a rookie quarterback, Cam Ward, playing in Arizona. I'm going Cardinals. It seems like an easy pick, but I look at all these picks and as I'm going through them again, I just have zero confidence. I would not be surprised if I'm under 500 for the week, way under 500. Um, if I'm above 500, I'll be happy. And just FYI, there's two less games this week. There's 4 teams on a bye, so the Falcons, Bears, Packers, and Steelers are all getting a bye week. So there's even less games. So I'm running out of. It's going the wrong direction for me. I need to make up for my bad picks, but I'm getting less of a chance, less games to pick. So wish me luck. Let's cross our fingers for Greg on this. Buccaneers at Seahawks again. What are we even doing here? Buccaneers going across the country. That's got to be one of the furthest trips. Probably Patriots to going out to Seattle would play, but from New England out to Seattle. But this still is pretty far too. Tampa Bay up to Seahawks. Seahawks Stadium's loud. Weather could be iffy. Never know. Might be rainy. Seahawks are decent defensive team. They're actually a lot better coached than I guess I had been thinking about. I've seen them play now a couple times. They played the Thursday game 2 weeks ago, and their defensive their their head coach is a defensive coordinator, and he came from Baltimore Ravens, and I think maybe that's why the Baltimore Ravens are struggling a little bit because came out of that system and took his talent up to be a head coach. So Seahawks, I mean, they could easily win this game. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Buccaneers that they have a good head coach down there, Todd Bowles, also defensive coordinator in his past and head coaching now. So that could be a good game to watch, actually. Lions at Bengals, not a good game to watch, I'm guessing. This is, in fact, this is my survivor pick, Lions, for this weekend. I'm picking the Lions in my little Yahoo pool that I'm in for surviving, and this seems like a no-brainer. I think the Lions are just gonna just smash the Bengals again. I mean, I feel sorry for the Bengals. They are just so terrible. It's embarrassing. Redskins at Chargers, and this is a good one because this is I call this the confusion bowl, if you will. You hear me say the Redskins, so I mean, technically they're supposed to be the Washington Commanders, and I say the Washington Redskins, and the Chargers are the LA Chargers, but 9 times out of 10, if I'm talking about the Chargers, I'll say San Diego Chargers because they were in San Diego for most of my life, and then they moved up to LA for whatever reason, who knows. stadium, I guess. They couldn't build a new stadium down in San Diego. I mean, yeah, good for the taxpayers of San Diego. I'm glad that they didn't fork over the money to build these, what, $5 billion stadiums now they cost, taxpayer expense for what, 8 or 9 games in the whole year. And maybe they get some concerts. I don't know. I mean, seriously, you expect taxpayers to pay for these stadiums? That is a joke. Anyway, I'm picking the Chargers because Chargers got embarrassed by the Giants out there in New York last weekend. I think they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder. Redskins are getting their quarterback back from injury, Jaden Daniels. So we'll see how they do, but I don't know. I mean, again, this is a toss up as far as I'm concerned. Chargers lost their one of their starting tackles to a high ankle sprain. I think he's going to be out this week, maybe a couple more weeks. And then their starting other tackle was injured preseason. So they're working from behind in the injury front. And I don't know. Let's go Chargers. Help me out. Give me a win here. Patriots at Bills. I'm picking the Bills. I think this is the Sunday night game. Yeah, Sunday night game. And I think the Bills will come to play. I think they have a big, speaking of chips on their shoulders, Bills have a big chip on their shoulder against Patriots for all the years that they were just being dominated during the Tom Brady era. And so I think they'll pull out all stops just to try to embarrass the Patriots if they can do that. But I don't know. I like the Bills. And that's one of the more confident picks that I have, if I have any confidence at all, besides the Lions at Bengals. And here we are. Chiefs at Jaguars, not the Jaguars. Jaguars. I'm picking the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have righted the ship mostly. I think they got a receiver. What's his name? Xavier Worthy he hurt his shoulder like in the first series of plays to open the season. I think that was down in Brazil, and then he's back. Came back last week and was dominating receiver for the Chiefs. I think they're gonna go ahead and go down to Jacksonville, and on Monday, this is a Monday night game, and just return to their old ways and dominate that game. Chiefs have a defense. Chiefs have pretty good defense, and defensive coordinator. What's his name? Spagliano, something like that. Don't quote me on that. Spags, I think they call him, the defensive coordinator. So I think that they'll go ahead and put that one up in the confidence pool there. I'm gonna say Lions, Bills, and Chiefs. I think those are your top sure bets if you're gonna bet some money. Don't bet. It's not worth it. I mean, as you can see, just even picking games straight up with no line, nothing. I'm only getting 70% right, and I was above 500 last week, but this could be the week that I dip below 500 overall for the week, not overall, but 45-19 on the year. That includes last night's loss with stupid Rams losing against the 49ers, which that's a trap game. Trapped me into losing. So we'll see how it goes. I'm enjoying the season so far, and it's gonna get tougher because the buys start happening. So pay attention. And I think I mentioned that the 4 teams on buys this week: Falcons, Bears, Packers, Steelers. So good luck to everyone on their picks, NFL picks this week, and especially good luck to me. It's embarrassing to come back and have to try to explain why I'm so bad at this. For all the time I spend looking at this and watching games and doing that stuff, and I'm still just guessing, like flipping a coin. Anyway, on to the fun part. I'm gonna get a drink of water, and we'll get the 5th chapter read of the memoir, Colonel and the Kid. Hopefully it goes good. Hopefully I'm getting better. And I read this one beforehand, so I'm hoping it's comes out okay. It's a short chapter. For some reason, I can't seem to get it called up here on the teleprompter, if you will. Anyway, chapter 5, the horse comb. And as usual, I like to start each chapter with a quote, and this quote's from Herman Melville, and it says, quote, "No philosophers so thoroughly comprehend us as dogs and horses," end quote. And just a little commentary on that using the philosophers that have, I guess, tried to philosophize over the years, trying to compare us, try to figure out who we are. And the two things that Herman Melville references here, that dogs and horses, they know people. They know their owners and their friends. And, I guess for me, when I was looking at this quote too, I was thinking about psychiatrists almost. In my mind, I was thinking of psychiatrists. They're trying to comprehend us in this way. And that's why it's interchanging those words. Maybe they're not the same, but I also think about the psychiatrists try to comprehend humans, and they can do less to understand humans than what dogs and horses can do. So anyway, start the chapter off, the horse comb, chapter 5, with that quote about dogs and horses, and you can see where this is going because it's got the horse comb. It's the horse is in the title of the chapter, and it's a reference to horses in the quote. So let's jump in. Maybe I don't get it. It's quite possible I should have been insulted. The time frame of the event is slightly hazy, but I had probably reached double digits in years. I'm thinking I was 10 years old, but it is a giant question mark. Yet irrelevant overall. If I had been a teenager, I might still be traumatized, curled up on a therapist's couch, clinging to a box of tissues. I guess I was lucky, being too young and naive to interpret criticism of the way I looked. As it stands, I consider it some measure of tit for tat directed at Grandpa, the notorious teaser that he was. What, pray tell, is all this leading up to? It's hygiene. More specifically, as a child, I was not keen on combing my hair. Hence, in one of the visits to see Grandma and Grandpa, I was given the gift of a horse comb. Or as the slogan printed on the comb denotes, your horse's best friend. Let me say this. You have a weird horse if its best friend is a comb. So I have a couple photos of the horse comb, and I'll read the caption and then describe the photos. And then for the video podcast, I'll insert these photos into I'll overlay them on the video so you can see them. But the caption reads, "Photos of the horse comb, an early gift from Grandpa." And then the first photo, they're side by side, and it's just the front and the back of the horse comb. Then the one, and it's a red comb with big teeth. And it's not like a human comb where it's got finer teeth, and a lot of times the teeth are bigger on one end and they kind of taper down to smaller size on the other end. This is just big teeth in the comb. And one side of the comb says, "Your horse's best friend." And there's a little picture of a horse there. And then on the other side of the comb, it says, "Clark Feeds and Western Store, Paramount, California." And then there's I don't know, it's a phone number. I guess it's too small for me to read because my eyes are getting bad. But anyway, and then it's just the size of the comb is, I have a little quarter for reference of the size, and it looks like the comb is about 3.5 inches long and maybe 2 inches tall. And it's got a little hole in the top of the comb. I guess you can put your finger in there and hold the comb better when you're combing the horse's mane and tail. And it's just, I mean, it's really funny to me to even think about this story. I just, maybe I'll make some comments after the story. I'm going to try to finish reading it if I can control my own laughter here. I never gave it much thought until now, but it probably got under Grandpa's skin, at least a little bit, that I didn't get the hint. The not so subtle hint that I should comb my hair and be more conscious of what I look like fell upon deaf ears. Oblivious does not begin to describe my lack of understanding that my unkempt hair could reflect upon others. Yikes. I look back at my youthful energy and shudder to think about the cloud of embarrassment that floated around me. Hopefully, that's all in the past. If it is in the past, it probably won't stay there long. You get to a certain age, and the way you look becomes the least of your worries. And on top of that, you care less and less what other people think. Grandpa was a gentleman. Really, an officer and gentleman. Just hold your horses. Ha ha. I'll eventually get to his military service. Like previously mentioned, he was careful with my feelings, with his suggestions about combing my hair. He used a brilliant psychological tool, deflection, to buffer the harshness of his criticism by using a comb as a distraction. Obviously, he could have just handed me a black plastic comb and said, use it. But in my case, there was no commentary, just a red plastic horse comb, kind of a comical gift. I imagine he enjoyed his own humor privately, but not at my expense or to an audience of my brothers and cousins. I still have the comb, the red horse comb. I dug it out of the decorative wooden box, the Winchester ammunition box that stores a bunch of my trinkets and treasures from yesteryear. The horse comb still looks new, brand new. To hold it in my hands is kind of weird in some sense. Maybe I'm looking for that conduit to the past. It'll inspire other memories that I can record. It did jog some thoughts, a couple of quotes from Grandpa that I will fit into later chapters. I took some notes on those words that came into my head so I wouldn't forget them. The teeth of the horse comb are large and not conducive to styling a human's hair. Yet I ran that comb through my thinning hair with a smile on my face. I contemplate my own end. My heirs will search through my possessions, probably laughing at all the junk I've accumulated. Hope they find some things of value here and there. When they come across the red plastic horse comb, there probably won't even be a pause as they discard it. That's perfectly okay. It served its purpose. And then I have another photo, and I'll read the caption and describe it. The caption reads, I felt this would be a good callback to the football cleats chapter. My hair is not as unkempt as the photos from that chapter, but this photo includes some special items in the background. Behind me, you will see my family's set of encyclopedias just above the stereo cabinet, the hi-fi. I have such fond memories of both items, plus get a little of that orange shag carpet. So the photo is me holding my punt, pass, and kick trophy in front of me. I'm wearing my Minnesota Vikings pajama top and looks like some white cutoff shorts. And they got a lot of frill, the cottony from where the cut is on the shorts. And I didn't even realize that. I thought they were just pajama bottoms when I saw the other photos before. But I got a big smile on my face. I'm really grinning. My hair is kind of it's pushed down, but it's just kind of all over the place on my forehead and kind of going different directions. It almost looks like I could shape that into more like the Count Dracula haircut. Really easily just put a point coming down in the front of my head. But then there's the encyclopedias in the background that are, I wish I had them. I don't know, because there was some classic stuff in those. There's like the children's volumes that we had too. And they had this one, maybe I describe it another place later in the memoir, but I'll double down on the description of the one volume that had like a little frog, little overlays, transparent overlays that you could look at, and it would show like the skeleton and the organs and the muscles of a frog. It's just so fascinating to me. I remember looking at that all the time. And I know that they had in the A was one of the bigger volumes. They had the airplanes, and I remember looking at that just over and over again because they had like all these military World War II planes, and just paintings of them in the encyclopedia on back-to-back pages. And the one that I can just distinctly remember was the Spitfire airplane, fighter airplane from that was in England's fighter plane that helped try to shoot down all the German bombers when they were bombing London and the rest of England during World War II. And I remember that camouflage painting was, and it was like this purplish hues and stuff, different from the green and brown camouflage I remember most camouflage being. And I remember having a model airplane that I painted that way based on that, based on the one I'd seen in encyclopedia. And maybe I'll do some research on Google and see if I can come up with that photo of that encyclopedia page and just have it for my nostalgic remembrance. Anyway, good times. And then, of course, there's the hi-fi, just huge stereo cabinet behind me. I mean, it's probably as big as me, probably 4 feet long, maybe 5 feet long. Has the built-in speakers. I remember that you could, they had the stereo turntable was inside, and you could lift up the cabinet and that's change the records through that. And I mean, state of the art for the 1960s, but I don't know, just classic wood, a wooden cabinet stereo. It's just, I kind of wish I still had that. That'd be kind of cool to have just as a, you know, a discussion item. When if you ever have a party at your house, you could check out my classic stereo here. Now you can just play every song you want on some little electronic, what do they call them, a turtle box now, it's a waterproof little box, and get pretty good sound out of them. Great sound, really. But it's just not as cool as a wooden cabinet like that, in my opinion, anyway. So, and of course, then there's an orange shag carpet of the 70s. I think that this photo was 1977, so it's pretty much in the depth of the shag carpet. Anyway, back to the chapter. We'll finish off the chapter. With kind of went on blabbing on about that last photo, but finally, there's a good life lesson here. You can give a person a horse comb, but you can't make them use it. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my own jokes here. That really made me laugh when I typed that. I think it's a good variation of that old adage, and I'd like to end the chapter with a quote. And here's the quote from John Haywood in circa 1546. I was doing some research trying to figure out this classic quote, and you'll get it, you'll hear it. Quote: "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink." End quote. I mean, it's a classic quote, and I've had said that, many times, referring to things where you try to tell people what to do or help them, and you know, you know, they don't do it, and you say, "Oh, I can lead a horse to water, can't make them drink." And I finally looked it up, and I don't remember what or who John Haywood was, but I was surprised to see that it was from 1546. I mean, it's a long time ago. So anyway, well, that concludes the chapter for the Colonel and the Kid memoir today, chapter 5. Next chapter, just a little preview, chapter 6, the hose. So you can start making your guess of what that's going to be like. We'll put that to rest for the week. I did want to say that I can't imagine there's anybody else in the world that has that similar story as their grandfather giving them a gift of a horse comb, trying to get them to comb their hair. I feel like it's got to be just one in the world that had that. I mean, maybe there was another person out there that had that. Maybe more. I don't know. I just can't imagine that that's that's something that would be done in commonplace anyway. So I feel really special that I may be the one person that has that horse comb used for human use. They should put that on their disclaimer. Not for human use. Could injure your scalp with those harsh teeth of that comb. Anyway, yeah, I'm as you can see, I'm very amused by that story, and glad to share it, and hopefully got a laugh out of it, and a little lighter story. Again, that's the whole thing for me, and just sharing this memoir and these stories, and I'm hoping that you can remember your own stories and write them down, and you can just talk to your parents and grandparents about the funny stories, and have them in your back pocket to remember and comfort you in times of trouble, whatever comes up. Then feeling a little sad or whatever, you can remember those stories and have a warm feeling inside. So anyway, I think I'm gonna cut her short today. Already 45 minutes. That's try to shoot for an hour each podcast, but I well, it's Friday afternoon. So we're working on Friday afternoon here, and I you know I take that back. I do have a couple other things on my list here that I wanted to get to, and I went through the one book, based on the hat, but I wanted to talk about my one of my other books. This is, I've already forgotten what order these books were written in, but I think this was the second book that I ever wrote, and it's called The G-Men 2, Pay to Play, and it's got the Roman numeral 2. I should have used the 2 up there and matched the Pay to Play. And this was a book that I wrote as sort of my own therapy when I was working. I found my job too stressful for quite a while, and I don't know why. I worked for the federal government. I guess maybe I cared too much about doing good work, and I've I fell into like a very stressful situation, and this was my therapy, was writing. That's how I even got into writing in the first place. It was therapy to just kind of record stuff and fictionalize maybe some of the stuff was going on. And this is actually a photo of the Taos Gorge Bridge. It's up on US 64 in Taos, New Mexico. It's out of town a ways, a few miles from Taos, but this bridge is a fantastic bridge. And it was, I think, built in the early 60s, and it was immediately put on the historic bridge list because it was just a phenomenal feat to get across this gorge. The From the bridge to the water below, it's the Rio Grande River, Rio Grande, I guess. There's my Spanish coming up from New Mexico, but it's like 650 foot from the bridge to the water. So it's a dramatic. I'd love going up there and seeing that bridge and walking out on it. And it's just spectacular. Just kind of for me, the older I get, the more scared of heights I am. It seems like when I was a kid, it was nothing to do that. But now it's like you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. It's like, oh boy, looking over that edge, just kind of give that feeling. And it's an interesting feeling. I don't mind getting it just once in a while, but if I have if I have visitors come up, I like to take them up there if I can. It's a couple-hour drive up there, but so it's not the easiest drive, but it's probably worth it. If you come out to see me, let me know if you want to go up there. I'll drive up there with you. Not especially since I'm retired now. Anyway, I'll read the description I wrote for the back of the book. And it says, The G-Man 2, Pay to Play, is a tongue-in-cheek novel looking at the corruption permeating the politically charged landscape of the Southwest. This story follows a federal government engineer naively taking on a political machine. When the state governor decides to run for president, he needs a campaign centerpiece. Unfortunately, that showpiece is a commuter train known as the Train Trekker and is being constructed at the taxpayer expense. Graft, favors, and murder dot the landscape of this modern-day Wild West tale. Can the G-Man survive the arid landscape and political animal laying waste to its enemies? And yes, if you were thinking, a government engineer, I guess maybe the hero is Greg. Yeah, I guess see, this is my therapy. This is how I wrote myself into being a hero. So I don't know. It's I say tongue in cheek in the description in the back. It's almost satire of the way things are. I'm not in the Southwest. I mean, I think all the governments are corrupt everywhere. So I don't think that any one place, one state, one country, anything has a monopoly on the corruption. I think there's problems everywhere, and I don't know. Maybe maybe I'll stop talking there. I do like the back. You can see I did some quite the graphic work here. You can see the little faded the government license plate, and right here you can see the G-Men government license plate like that. So then again, there's me. That's the same photo I think I had in the other book, from 15 or 16 years ago, looking nice and young. No gray beard back then. So awesome. Anyway, and I bring that up because I said I was going to end the podcast short, but now we're into it. We're going to get the full hour, I guess, out of this. Next episodes we'll talk about some of the other books, but I wanted to bring those two books and bring this one back. And I failed to read the part here. It says, Greg Heitmann hails from South Dakota, but has resided in New Mexico since 2004. New Mexico and its quirky politics sparked Greg's imagination and soon began his creative writing journey in the land of enchantment. And below that says, The G-Man 2, Pay to Play, is Greg's second novel and is based on a screenplay of the same name. His first novel was a Western entitled Fort Siston, Dakota Territory. You can find out more about Greg at his website, www.thegman.com. Contact him via email at g_mann_jr@yahoo.com. And yeah, feel free to email me if you want. I'll respond. I check my email every day. Not as much as I used to, but now that I'm retired, I'm very busy, so I don't have as much time to check my email. So, kind of maybe when I was working, maybe I check my personal email a little more because as a distraction from the actual work. Only on my breaks, only on qualified breaks, the morning break, lunch break, and afternoon break. So I was trying to stay within the rules. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I was marketing my books today. Got the Fort Siston, Dakota Territory book and the G-Man 2 Pay to Play book marketed. So my manager will give me the thumbs up saying, good work, Greg. If I had a manager, that's what they would say. And I noticed here that I did have one other thing, and I wanted to bring it up after I saw my notes. Instead of cutting the podcast short, I wanted to talk about the music segment, which I like to have for each podcast. And I would have felt really bad if I would have cut this off, because it was funny today that when I go for a walk in the morning, a lot of times I'll see the Rail Runner, was the inspiration for what I call the terrain trekker in the G-Man book, the G-Man 2 Pay to Play book. So that commuter rail runs from Santa Fe down to Albuquerque, and there's a lot of government workers that live in Albuquerque because it's way cheaper. So they take that train as a commuter rail up into Santa Fe each day, and keeps the cars off the road. I think they get a discount. Maybe the state pays or subsidizes their train ticket for that, their train fare. So I see that train going by. It's pretty close to my neighborhood. It's probably like 2 blocks away. I mean, I can hear it from my house when it's going by, actually. But when I go for a walk in the morning, when it comes by, it's about 10:20 a.m. It's pretty consistent. And we have a family Snapchat group, and I take a lot of times I'll take a little video of that, and I'll put some train music, a song that references trains, a little snippet, like a 20-second clip of the little video, and I'll send that to the family Snapchat group. And today I actually I saw it go by. It was like 10:23, I think, when it went by. So I took a little 20-second video, and I went on Snapchat and found the musical reference I wanted to put, and it was Waylon Jennings, Lukenbach, Texas. And in parentheses, back to the basics of love. And that's the title of the song. I put that song in there, but the lyrics that were included in that portion of the song, it says, Hank Williams pain songs, Lou Berry's train songs, and Blue Eyes crying in the rain. So it talked about the train in his lyrics, and I wanted to include that with that little video clip. And that was, I thought, very creative. So you're welcome. And I can't play that because that'd be a copyright violation of this on the podcast from the actual music. But it's funny, that song Lukenbach, Texas, from Hank, not Hank, from Waylon Jennings. Um, it's funny about that because I think that picture of the hi-fi stereo, the stereo cabinet that I showed earlier. Um, I remember playing that album on that stereo, and it's a classic album. It's from this old Waylon is named the the album, like OL apostrophe Waylon, winning Waylon Jennings, and they're part of the Outlaw Country, and just it's burned into my memory of that picture on the album. He's holding his guitar, and then that little, I guess, complimentary album that was the Outlaws, and it was Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter and Willie Nelson and Tom Paul Glazer. They had this Outlaw album, and those got played a lot on that stereo, and they're just burned into my mind as far as that goes. Maybe I can get those photos uploaded on here too. See if I think I got those albums, at least the CDs, and I can find that artwork and take a picture and put them up there so you can see them. Um, and finally, in the musical section, I heard on the radio today that it was Lindsey Buckingham's birthday, and I don't know, I'm stunned to hear. I'm speechless to even talk about it. It was his birthday. He's 76 years old. And I'm assuming people know who Lindsey Buckingham is. Maybe you don't know, but he was one of the critical members of Fleetwood Mac when they hit it big. He was a singer, songwriter, and I guess he dragged his girlfriend at the time, Stevie Nicks, in with him into Fleetwood Mac. And I think he said, I can't join without bringing Stevie into the band. And they said, oh, okay, if that's the way it's got to be. They brought her in, and Fleetwood Mac's fortunes just went through the roof. They're just an unbelievable band, lots of great tunes. And I do say, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, and I just, for some reason, musically, Lindsey Buckingham and the song Trouble, I categorize that as my number one song of all time and my favorite song of all time. If you don't know Lindsey Buckingham and Trouble, look it up. Again, I'd love to play it, but it'd be a copyright violation, so they'd probably ban me from podcasting or fine me, or I don't know. I guess they'd do something to me. I'd be thrown off of podcast airwaves or whatever you call these. So I won't play that. I just encourage you to look up Trouble by Lindsey Buckingham, and I wish him happy birthday. Happy birthday, Lindsey. If you're listening, wouldn't that be something if he was listening and he contacted me and thanked me for wishing him happy birthday? Let's not hold our breath if that's going to happen. But Lindsey Buckingham, he has my number one song of all time favorite song, Trouble. So anyway, with that, we're bumped up right up to the 1 hour. So I think I'm going to sign off, and as usual, I want to go out on a positive note here with you and for you, drag you along with me in the positivity realm, and just stay on the up and up. And part of the positivity is taking action. Just be proactive. It's up to you to have that good attitude. I put it on you to go forward and make the decisions you need to make. Don't procrastinate them. I'm sitting here, there's a lot of stuff I could be doing, but I'm doing a podcast because I want to do this podcast, share my thoughts, and encourage you to do the same thing. You can do your own podcast. I mean, it's interesting to watch yourself and hear it played back, and hopefully I'm going to get better at doing this and inspire others to do the same thing and record their memories, and ultimately for me to have this legacy of all these videos and family members that can and go back and look at some of this stuff and hear about and see some of the stuff that went on in their family and the historical people in their family, and that's, I guess, to me, that's my gift to my relatives that they can have a record of some of the history, a digital record of some of the history, and a paper record, I guess, if I ever get the books printed. And I encourage you to do that for your family too. So anyway, I won't say goodbye. I'll just say until next time. I will see you next time, and I will leave you with these words: knock, and the door will be open to you. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and you shall be given. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Let's go Vikings. Let's go picks. Let's be above 500 for the week, and I come back and maybe, I've maybe have a perfect record for once, and I can brag it, and I pat myself on the back and not break my arm doing it. So anyway, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.